Hi, welcome to the Crafts channel. My name's Corinne Brad, and today for Christmas I want to show you how to make a simple drawstring bag like this one that we have here for baby's first Christmas, or even one of the treat bag for your favourite pet. And the drawstring is situated on the inside of the bag, so it's nice and neat, so they can be hung up on a mantelpiece as an alternative to a stocking. And then after Christmas, you can use this bag to store precious photographs and other mementos of baby's first Christmas. They've been personalised using heat transfer vinyl, which I've cut with the Silhouette Cameo 4. So I'll give you a brief introduction to that, to how that works, because that one's new to me. But let me just show you how to start the bag. So, you need a piece of fabric, really double the size of the bag that you want. Now this piece of fabric is 35 centimetres by 24 centimetres. And what I've done is I have pressed over 1 centimetre along the top edge. You also then want a piece of contrasting plain fabric that you cut to the same width, so 35 centimetres, and you want that about 3.5 centimetres wide. And then all I've done is I have tipped over the end of this fabric, and I'm just going to put a little bit of dry glue stick on this, to hold it in place. Just a little quick fake hem on there. So I've folded in about 1 centimetre on each end, and then folded about 5 millimetres in on each side. And I'm going to lay this on top of the hemmed edge of my main fabric. And then I'm just going to quickly pin it in place, because this piece of fabric will form the channel for your drawstring. So instead of having to worry about leaving a gap at the end of your main back seam or gaps in the hem for your drawstring to go through, you can make my life much simpler by just popping it on the inside. Or you could pop it on the outside. I've put it on the inside so that it covers that raw edge and cuts down on your sewing time. I mean, these are especially good for things like school Christmas fates. You could make a series of bags, and then you could take your laptop and your cutting machine down to the school fete, knock up a personalised message for somebody and iron it onto the bag while they wait. But we would just very quickly stitch this. And what I'm going to do is pop it in my machine, and I'm just going to move the needle over to the edge so I get a nice wide channel. I'm also just going to move my iron because I can see me knocking that off. You know when you think, why is this going so slow? And it's because you've turned your speed control down. So let's just... So that's sewn the drawstring to the inside of your bag. And then the temptation is then to stitch it into a bag. Don't do that, because first of all, what you want to do is you want to sew a panel onto the middle, like this one, or even just iron straight onto the middle. And in order to do that, you need to create your wording in the Silhouette Studio software, as I have done here. And then once you're happy with it, you can send it to the machine, and you just want to check that you've put the correct material in there. There's a whole host of materials that you can select from, like acetate sheets, balsa wood, chalkboard. We're going for smooth heat transfer. The action is cut, and I'm using an auto blade. Now the auto blade, which fits here in carriage 1, you'll see that there's no method of changing the depth of that blade. But what happens is the machine will automatically press it down the number of times it thinks you want it. And then when it's pressed down completely, it returns to 0. So I don't know if you can pick that up on the camera. There's a little gauge there with a red marker, and as you push it in, the marker clicks up to where it needs to be. So it's quite a neat little design. So I'm just going to pop that back in there and clip it in place. I'm going to cut myself a piece of heat transfer vinyl, the size that I need it. Now on my screen here, I've got this as 4 inches by 3 inches. So what's that, about 10 by 7.5? Cut it a little bit oversized just in case. And with heat transfer vinyl, what you need to do is you need to put it shiny side down on your cutting mat. Here. And you also need to make sure that you flip your design because you're cutting it back to front. When you go to send this, the software will say you're working on HTV, do you want to flip it? So it will remind you and it will allow you to flip it if you wish. And then we simply load the mat into the machine. Now the thing about the Silhouette Cameo 4 machine is you actually can cut without a mat. I've not tried that yet because I'm not that brave. But a little tip that I would say is you have this moving slider here that you can press the lock button in and you can slide it up and down your carriage. So if you're putting a sheet of A4 paper in without using a cutting mat, it will grip it. But we need to have this locked in to the width of my cutting mat. And once you've moved the rollers, make sure you re-engage them, otherwise it will slip. So we'll just pop this in here, like so. We'll press send. I don't want to send it mirrored because I have mirrored it, so I'll send it as is. And it's adjusting the height because it's just doing a half cut. And there you have it. So we'll just kick the mat out and peel away the vinyl. And you'll see on there, you can't see anything because the blade is so fine, it has cut that vinyl without making any visible marks. And I was going to trim off the excess, but I now can't remember if I've turned this round, so I don't know which bit to trim off. Never mind, eh? And then with HTV, you simply pick up the edge of it with your scalpel and you begin to peel it away, and then you would weed out the centres of the letters. Now, to save time, I have one that's pre-weeded, which is here. And if I was to put this straight onto my decorative fabric, it wouldn't really show up brilliantly, which is why I'm going to pop it on a piece of contrast material and then just grab my ironing board, grab a scrap of fabric to pop over the top to protect the acetate, and then iron this on a medium heat. And while I'm ironing this, I was just going to mention, take care when you choose your fonts. I mean, this script font is quite good at this size. I love this font, but because the serifs, not the serifs even, parts of the lettering are so fine, it really did worry me a bit when I was weeding it because I thought I was going to rip the lettering. I mean, HTV is quite strong, but it is a bit nerve-wracking when you're weeding away and it looks like one of your letters is going to disappear. So that's welded onto my fabric now. And then I can simply peel away the backing. Where you have the centre line of your fabric, if you just put a little crease, top and bottom of your personalised panel. And I'm going to put this a little bit lower down than I did on the original bag, because I did notice that when you gather the drawstring up, it does obscure a bit of lettering. So I'm going to put it a bit further down, line up the 2 centre marks, and just pin it at the corners, avoiding pinning through your vinyl lettering. And then we're just going to zigzag stitch that to the front of the bag. So I just want quite a small zigzag stitch and quite a close zigzag stitch. Don't forget to put your machine back to a straight stitch, because now you have that on there, what you can do is sew down the back seam with a normal seam allowance. And because you've tucked under the ends of the channel, they won't get in the way of the seam. Now, I've not bothered lining this bag, so what I do want to do is to make sure that it doesn't fray with use. I am just then going to go down that seam again with a zigzag. Set it back to a straight stitch. And then adjust that back seam so it sits in the middle of the bag. That way you get a much neater finish and a much nicer looking bag. And it does mean that your panel that you've stitched in sits in the middle. And again, we'll just zigzag that. To neaten it. So there you've got your bag, and while your bag is inside out, grab yourself a safety pin and a length of ribbon. Pop the safety pin in the end of the ribbon and then simply thread it. That ribbon's going to fray. I'm going to show you how to fix that in a minute. And then just manipulate your ribbon through the bag. And what I like to try and do is, with this bag, is make sure there's not too much slack on that ribbon. Especially, you know, if a young child is going to be looking at this in years to come, you don't want there to be any chance of them getting into trouble with excess lengths of ribbon. So what I'm going to do while the bag is flat, I am going to make sure the ribbon's in there, tie it in a neat wreath knot. Like so. So there's no excess play on that. And then if you just trim your ribbon at a 45-degree angle, and then to stop it fraying excessively, because a lot of satin ribbon will fray, if you just get a lighter or a candle flame and just don't put the edge of the ribbon in the flame, but just put it close enough to it that you can see the edges start to melt. Because what that will do is that will seal that ribbon, and you can go like that and it doesn't fray. Whereas with a normal piece of ribbon, if you go like that on an unfrayed edge, it will just distort. So, very handy trick. And then just pop your hands inside the bag, turn it out and press out your corners. Find what you've done with your ironing board. And just give it a quick press. Just take care not to press the vinyl without any form of protection over it, because if your iron is too hot, you'll find that the vinyl will come off your fabric and onto the sole plate of your iron. So you can press it once the protective layer has been taken off, but you do need to make sure that you've got a layer of fabric over the top. So let's just recap. Little drawstring bag for baby's first Christmas, or a dog treat bag. And any Christmas items, for example, for a Christmas Eve box, can be personalised with heat transfer vinyl. If you can put an iron on something, you can heat transfer vinyl onto it. So if you've bought a new pair of pyjamas, you could put a monogram pocket on them, something like that. The software for the Silhouette is actually quite intuitive. I don't have any technical software training, and I can find my way around that okay. So play around with that. And as I say, the machine is very quick. It's also very light, but it cuts accurately. The mat goes in well, and I've got to play around yet with matless cutting, but that's something I'm sure will come to you at some point. In the meantime, make yourself some drawstring bags. Enjoy yourselves, look forward to Christmas, and thank you very much for watching. If you've been inspired to create, please share your makes with us in the comments section below. And if you've enjoyed videos by the Crafts channel, hit the like button. Want to see more of us? Then click subscribe. See you next time.